Damien ruins horror movies.
What are you doing, buddy? You could have gotten both of us killed.
I'm sorry, I freaked out a little bit.
Welcome back to another episode of Damien Ruins Horror Movies. I am your host, Damien, and tonight we're going to do Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Because it's the first week of August. And normally this is when the fair comes to town. I can't wear this mask the whole time. So this is kind of, I don't know, I was looking for something kind of a fairground feel. I was going to do Funhouse, the Tobe Hooper in 1980, is it 81? 82? 80? I don't know. It's a good movie. I was going to do that, and then I thought, oh, and poser alert, I've never seen Killer Klowns from Outer Space before, so I thought, what a good excuse to watch this movie. This movie came out in 1988. It's directed by Steven Chiodo? And it came out when I was in 6th grade. Because I've never seen this movie, but it's not because I've never heard of it or didn't have the opportunity or the ability. It's just, even when I was in 6th grade, this movie looked fucking stupid. And I think it's grown legs in the last 10 years or so. And it is a cult classic. And it's a weird go-to. It's also PG-13. So there's nothing too graphic, but it's kind of goofy. It's not scary. But it's fun and it's weird. But it's good and it looks good. But it's funny because this whole movie feels very 1986. That might seem weird, but a lot of the movies that came out in 1986, they look like horror movies. They look a lot like this. This has that kind of goofy, like Critters and even movies that weren't that goofy, like Night of the Creeps and The Stuff and things like that. They had this kind of look and feel to them where it's like kind of campy, but they're classics. You know, they're definitely horror classics from my childhood. From like Friday night, me and my family, we would rent movies and we'd pick out whatever, but we'd end up with some of these lighter horror movies that are still, they hold up. I don't know if it's nostalgia, but they're still awesome. So the film opens with the opening theme, which I should probably put a link in the notes at the bottom so you can click on it and listen to it. It kind of sounds like that Cheap Trick song, Surrender. There's also another link I'm going to throw in there. I saw it a few months ago, like 6 months ago or so. It's somebody took the Mr. Bungle song Carousel and dubbed it. They took chunks of this movie and spliced them together and put a cool little video together. You just gotta, I remember the first, like, you gotta forward through the first 45 seconds because the music doesn't start until like 45 seconds in. But it's actually pretty cool. After the credits are done, there's a teenager trying to buy beer and he gets it, but he sees the cop, who will later find out is Officer Mooney. And then he meets up with the friends. They go to the top of the world. The top of the world is the makeout spot that by the time, I'm pretty sure by the time I was in high school, makeout spots were not a thing anymore in terms of driving a car somewhere where you and 20 other cars parked and guys and girls made out as a group, but separated in their own cars. I didn't know they did that in the 80s. That was like a 50s and 60s thing. All the 50s movies and 60s, mainly 50s. I think that's a 50s thing. Nobody did that shit in the 80s, did they? I don't know. If you did that in the 80s, comment below. Let me know. Tell me all the details. Yeah, you gotta do that. Just let me know. Is that really a thing then? Because that seems very 50s. The only people doing that in the 80s were the people making Porky's. But the makeout session is interrupted by an ice cream truck and an intercom letting everybody know that there's ice cream, and if their mouth needs a break and could use a nice cold break from the kissing, something cold for their lips, they had plenty for sale. And it turns out it's the Terenzi brothers who know the people they're making out. And it's not a big group of people. I said 20 a minute ago. There's not 20 cars here making out. There's a couple. But the Terenzi brothers show up. They get dismissed. Nobody's into ice cream because people have beer and women and they want to make out. So the Terenzi brothers leave, and they have two girls with them. They got the Buffalo chicks with them, And so they skedaddle. But as they're leaving, they see a shooting star. It's a comet, and it lands very close. And they all see it. And, of course, elsewhere, not too far away from where they all are, there's that typical old man, old farmer crazy guy with the suspenders over the old flannel shirt who sees it first and has to get there first because he wants to get that, he wants to see aliens, he wants to get that fame and fortune to check it out and investigate and then let the news know, and then he's going to be some kind of local hero. And it's quite the trope. I mean, it's like Stephen King in Creepshow. He's that guy. Or in The Watch, dude from Full Metal Jacket, you know what I'm talking about. What is your major malfunction, pal? That guy, he plays it, and there the guy heads over and he gets there first. But instead of finding like a crater or a comet or anything like that, he finds a shiny circus tent. So he gets to the circus tent and he goes from like, ooh, a comet, ooh, aliens, oh, I'm gonna be rich, you. Holy shit, the circus is in town. And he runs up and he's all excited. He's like, how do I get in? And then like his dog, he has his dog with him, and his dog gets abducted. He doesn't see it happen. And then he like gets mad and he goes to break something and gets electrocuted, and then one of the clowns come out and they zap him and he disappears. And we head over to the police station where we officially meet Officer Mooney from the opening and Officer Dave. They're kind of the good cop, bad cop. Dave is a younger guy. Mooney's the older, crotchety dickhead. And they got these two kids that were out walking around drinking, and so they're busting them. They're making them stay the night in jail. And Officer Mooney kind of demonstrates that police brutality is not a new thing. It's kind of always been there. Once Mike and Debbie get to the tent, it's Debbie that starts getting cold feet and apprehensive about getting in, because he didn't want to go. He was like, that's way over there. She's like, it's not that far. He's like, yes, it is. She's like, no, it's not. Because he wanted to stay there and get it on in his car. But she wants to go check it out. So what does he do? He does what every guy does who's trying to get it on with a girl. He does exactly what she wants to do. And now they're in the tent. They get inside, and inside it looks more kind of, not spaceshipy. It looks huge inside. It doesn't look that big compared to them where it is from the outside. But they go in and it's like, whoa. But it has kind of a carnival funhouse feel to it. It's very like amusement park circuit. And Debbie realizes they are now inside the shooting star that they saw. They find a room full of cotton candy cocoons hanging like ball sacks, and inside each one there's a person. And then the clowns discover them, and then they make a run for it, and they narrowly escape. They get back to Mike's car and they hit the road. They try and make a plan, and she says they should go to the police station because she's got a friend that works there. But Mike's like, what are we going to tell them? That we found cotton candy? It's like, I don't even believe what we just saw. How are we going to explain this to them? She's like, we'll just go, trust me. And meanwhile in town, there's clowns out running around doing clown shit and vaporizing people. They get to the police station, and it turns out her friend is Dave, who we just met earlier. She starts to explain it to him, and he's kind of skeptical. But he's listening. He seems very like, all right. He's like, all right, Debbie. There. You did the right thing. You came to the right place. Yes. Go on, Debbie. Mooney, on the other hand, thinks they're full of shit. And Mooney just kind of hates people this age. And has no patience for him. So he's like, all right, whatever. I'm not listening to this. And Moody also probably has, Moody. I keep calling him Moody. His name's Mooney. He ex-Moody. His name's Mooney. But Mooney is also like, all right, Dave's just trying to bang this chick, and that's why he's listening to this story. Because he doesn't know the background. And neither do we, the viewer, yet. So Dave takes them, they all get in Dave's car and take Debbie home. And inside the car together, Mike finds out that Dave is Deb's old ex-boyfriend. And he's like, huh? Awkward. He's like, what? And Dave was not the one that broke up. So The plot thickens. And then at first Dave's kind of a dick to Mike, but then once they're in the car alone together, Dave's like kind of, because he's a little older. He's not a lot older, but he kind of like just, you know, he didn't know that he was going to run into this situation that night, so he didn't know how to react. He might have overreacted a little bit, but now he's like, he's cool. And so he's like, I wouldn't say he apologized. Well, Mike kind of apologizes, which is kind of weird. He's like, "Hey man, sorry, I didn't know." And Dave's kind of, "Hey man, it's cool. It's not about you. I mean, it's just, you know, it's not your fault. It's just kind of." And Mike's like, "All right." And they kind of bury the hatchet with each other, which is kind of cool because you're expecting like, "Uh-oh, we got these rivals," especially in an '80s movie, 2 guys, 1 girl. Usually there's a fist fight. There always is. There's always one guy's got, the asshole's got the girl. The new guy likes the girl, beats up the guy who's an asshole and steals the girl. And they have a happy ending. They live happily ever after. But not in this movie. It's a weird dynamic. It's Dave's not a bad guy, and Mike's not a bad guy either. You know, I mean, don't judge him by his Cosby sweater. But still, Dave doesn't buy this whole story at all, which is kind of weird. Because if you're Dave, what do you think? Like, okay, my ex just showed up here with her new boyfriend, telling me some crazy story, and they're both they're going with it. It's like, are they messing with me? But even though Dave doesn't believe it, he's not like acting like Mooney and just totally blowing it off, just like, oh, whatever, get out of here. He's still like, well, I gotta take it a little bit seriously. I don't know if that's because he's a good dude or because he's a good cop or whatever, but he looks into it and they investigate and they find a car and there's cotton candy in it. Like a lot. He's like, what is this? He's like, this is not cotton candy. And he slowly, it's like, because he never dismissed it. He just was never, he didn't want to be a fool, I think. Because they had gone to where the shooting star landed and the tent was gone. There were no car, there were no body, there was no evidence that what had happened had happened. Back at the station, Mooney's getting a lot of phone calls and he's kind of blowing it off. Because people are calling, he's like, these clowns are coming. And he's like, what? Now suddenly, he thinks it's like some weird college prank that everybody's in on. Even people who aren't in college. And he blows out, he's got that entitlement thing where he's this old guy who's been on the force for so long that, like, it makes him mad when people actually expect him to do his job. He's like, what? You want me to? No, fuck off. And he just hangs up, makes himself a drink, kicks his feet back, and just kind of hates the rich cunts that expect him to babysit their spoiled brat teenagers. Dave and Mike drive around for a while, and they see a clown. And once they see a clown, finally Dave's convinced when he sees a clown that makes like an animal balloon, and the clown is weird looking enough where he's like, all right, maybe you're telling the truth. And the clown like starts zapping people. So they make a break for it until they crash the car, and they run into the Terenzi brothers, an ice cream truck. So Mike goes with the Terenzi brothers because they're his friends. And Dave, his car still works. So he's like, I'll see you later. I'm going to go back to the station. And he goes to the station, and there's these weird clown footprints everywhere. He's like, what happened here? And he finds the aftermath of the clown visit. He walks around and he finds 2 huge cotton candy scrotums, and he kind of scrapes one, and he sees the face. It's one of the kids he busted earlier for drinking wine in public. And then he goes into the other room and he sees one of the clowns holding Mooney like a ventriloquist dummy. It says, we're here to kill you all. And so Dave's like, oh shit. And he pulls his gun out and he starts shooting the clown, but it doesn't faze him. The clown starts coming at him, and then he shoots him a final time, and he shoots him right in the nose. The clown looks like he goes into like this teleportation cycle and disappears, but Dave assesses from shooting him in the nose that kills him. And the only way that you can kill these clowns is by shooting them in the nose. And he doesn't say anything, but he's just kind of, oh, and the clown's gone. But it looks like the clown just like bailed. Mike and the Terenzi brothers, they drive around. The Terenzi brothers do not believe the clown shit at all until they take a corner and they see a bunch of clowns doing clown shit. And they're like, uh-oh. So they hop on their ice cream truck, speaker, and they're like, all right, you clowns, get out of there, clowns. And the clowns are turning people into cotton candy scrotums as a way, that's how they abduct them. And they're loading up the clown cars. For some reason, Deb is back at home taking a shower, which is weird because it's Friday night. She ain't got shit to do tomorrow. And this film doesn't even use this as the opportunity to give us a little boobage. She goes from being clothed to taking her clothes off while like the camera shoots the floor, and then she's in the shower, and you just hear the shower, and the shower curtains closed. And then once she gets out, she's got her clothes back. She's dried off and clothes back on within like 2 seconds. And there was some popcorn on the floor. Popcorn? Why do you mention popcorn? Why do I mention popcorn, you ask? Because there has been popcorn throughout this movie. And while I was watching it, I had to Google. It's like, what the fuck does the popcorn have to do with anything? Because they show it, and it's like, okay, there's popcorn. Where's the popcorn? So she's all dressed up like she's about to go on a date, which is weird because earlier when she was actually on a date, she was dressed like a pilgrim. I don't know what was up with that outfit. It wasn't like an 80s thing. It was like a 1700s thing. But instead, she's greeted by these baby clowns. Kind of look like Little Shop of Horror, like Venus flytraps with clown heads on them. And it turns out Rudy, that's the name of a clown, Rudy has a popcorn bazooka, and he shoots popcorn out of it. And the popcorn is like clown spawn seeds that grows baby clowns. So when they shoot the popcorn into places, the popcorn's going to turn into more clowns. That's how they multiply. That's clown sex. And I think the reason why I didn't pick up on that while I was watching the movie is because that doesn't make any fucking sense at all. She makes a run for it, but then she runs into full-grown clowns. So she tries to run, but then there's another one and another one. She tries to jump out the window, but there's more out there that are waiting to catch her with like that like tarp, like firemen have. Where they're like, come on down here, or like circus clowns would have, I guess, when they jump. And she's like surrounded, and then finally, she gets outside and she gets zapped by one of them. But instead of turning into a big cotton candy scrotum, she turns into she's like in this balloon, and it's not that transparent. So Mike and the Terenzi brothers show up right then, and they see them hooking the balloon up to the little clown car and getting ready to take off. They're like, oh, there she is. They got her. And I was like, how can you tell that? The balloon's not clear. It looks like a bouncy ball that you get from those $3 balls that you can buy that you can play wall ball with. So they start following the clowns. And then Dave just happens to be in the area right then. So he's following them. But the clown car is too fast. It is kind of a funny line when Mike's like, hurry up, we're losing them. And one of the Terenzi brothers is like, dude, what do you expect? This is an ice cream truck. How fast do you think it can go? It's used to going 10 miles an hour in a neighborhood. But then Dave is coming up after them. And he's following them. And he's got a siren on. They're like, well, they don't know it's Dave. The Terenzi brothers don't even know who Dave is yet. So like, uh-oh, they're the cops after us. Should we stop? It's like, yeah. So they stop, and then Dave crashes into him. And the Terenzi brothers start arguing. He's like, what'd you stop for? He's like, you told me to stop. I meant pull over. He's like, well, you said stop. So then Dave gets out, and he sees it's them. And now Dave's car is pretty fucked. So he gets in with them, and the four of them head after the clowns. They're not sure where to go, but then they think, you know what? Where do you think clowns would be? Let's go to the amusement park, because that's where else would clowns go? That's the direction they're heading, and it turns out they're right. That is where the clowns were heading. So they get there, and they start searching around, trying to figure out where Deb is. And Mike and Dave they lose the Terenzi brothers pretty quick, because they fall into like a ball pit, like McDonald's used to have, for kids to play in. And then when they get up, they look, and there's these two female clowns who are kind of like, hey, big boy. And they kind of look at each other like, Gonna get some alien clown. They get these female clowns from outer space, and they're down, and it's like, Mike and Dave push on and they find the big cotton candy scrotum storage room where they're storing all the people in the town. And they're like, Jesus Christ, it's like they got the whole town in here. They're creeping around, all of a sudden a clown comes in, so they start hiding behind these, these hooks of cotton candy scrotums. And the clown doesn't notice them. It goes straight up to one of them and it pulls out this big curly straw and sticks it into the cotton candy scrotum and starts, and you can see red. It's a clear straw, so you can see the red liquid is going into it. And at this point is when we realize, dun dun dun, these clowns feed off of human blood. The clown leaves. Mike and Dave go and they find Debbie. They find the balloon that she's trapped in. It really wasn't too hard for them to find her, which is weird, but they do. And they're like, how do we get out of there? And Dave pulls out his gun and Mike's like, what are you doing? No, you're gonna shoot her. He's like, don't. So he kind of shoots aside. She falls out and she's like fine. She's been conscious and aware the whole time. She's not like, where am I? So you're expecting something, but she's like, oh, hey guys. But the other clowns, they hear the gunshot, and so immediately the door opens and clowns start coming in. So they're like, oh shit, we got to get the fuck out of here. So they make a run for it, and they're running, and there's a lot of clowns after them. And they run, they end up on the top of this, like a pedestal, like they're a raised structure, and now all of a sudden they're just surrounded by clowns. They're like, there's no way out. And then there's a big crash, and it's the ice cream truck. It's the Terenzi brothers here for the rescue, and they start yelling on their intercom, and it's distracting enough that Mike and Deb and Dave make a run for it, and they get down there. But then there's like this eruption, and we meet the huge, like the main boss clown, the final stage clown, and he comes out, and they're like, oh shit. Because they haven't gotten into the ice cream truck yet. And the main clown picks up the ice cream truck and throws it and it explodes, killing our beloved Terenzi brothers. So Dave looks at Mike and Deb and says, hey, you guys, make a run for it. He's got his gun. He can make some noise and try and take out someone. It's like, you guys go make a run for it and save yourselves. I'm going to stay here. I'll take care of this. Just go. And he starts shooting. So they're like, all right. They take off and they get free, and as they get outside, the reinforcements cop, that's how you can tell the movie's almost over, because the cops are finally coming. That's how they do in horror movies. It's like the cops always show up at the end. It's like, all right, now what's going on here? It's like, oh, well, we've already killed the main guy. We already did everything we needed you to do. Nice of you to show up. But they're showing up, and the final guy isn't dead yet. So the cops are not completely late to the party, but they're about to be, because Dave's inside and he's like, he's been picked up with the clown, and he's like, oh man, and the clown's like, he's gonna like eat him or something, but he takes his badge because he's out of bullets, and he takes his badge off and stabs it in the nose, and it like kills the clown, and then like that leads to the blowing up of this, like killing that one. It's like some vampire shit where he kills that one, and that kills all the clowns and destroys a spaceship, and it blows up, and like this clown car pod flies away from the explosion, and it lands fairly close to Mike and Deb and the cops, and they're like, what was that? And they're like, whoa. And the cops kind of have no idea what's going on. And suddenly, like, goes to the clown car, and it's like, you see this open, and it's like, and Dave gets out, and it's like, oh my God, Dave's alive. It's a miracle. They're like, holy shit, how'd you do that? And then there's a little more rubble, and it opens up, and the Terenzi brothers, they're still alive somehow too. They're like, yeah. They're like, and Mike even addresses it. He's like, I watched you guys die. What the hell? They're like, oh, well, before he threw it, we went and hid in the freezer. It's like, what? How could you guys have possibly, in the heat of the moment, known to go and do that? But it does give us our happy ending. The only thing that's not happy about the ending is Dave is the hero, and he doesn't get the girl. But Dave's better off. Because you would think, once Dave has been found alive, that would give Deb enough time to be like, oh my God, to really make her choice. Be like, fuck, you know what? I love that guy. We just had problems, but now he's dead. But now him being alive, the fact that he sacrificed his life, the nobility of that guy. Yes. It's like, that's the guy I want to be with, not you, you Cosby sweater wearing motherfucker. But at the same time, that's the bad thing, because now Dave has all the information he needs to know. Because when he said, go on without me, I'm going to stay here and shoot, that would have been her cue to be like, no, you'll die if you stay here. I don't want you to die. But instead, she doesn't give a fuck about him. She got the fuck out of there. So, still a happy ending. Everything worked out. Mike might have some problems with Deb down the road, because she's no good. Anyway, the end. The Badass Award goes to Dave. Because as far as horror movies go, cops are pretty useless. But even though he didn't believe, he was still on board. I mean, granted, that was probably him trying to get back with Deb. But he wasn't a complete asshole to Mike. He was fair. And in the end, he ended up martyring himself for the two of them. And luckily, he just didn't get killed for it. What did we learn? Survival tips. Don't investigate shooting star landings. Don't underestimate clowns. In fact, just avoid clowns altogether. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe. Share it with your friends. In the bottom show notes, there's links where you can find me on Twitter and Facebook. Go visit me there, where you'll constantly be updated on what I'm up to. I will see you next Wednesday.